Hello everyone, welcome to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And things are developing quickly in Kursk. You see Ukraine making moves one day, and the next Russia's making moves, and then back to Ukraine, and it's just a continuous back and forth. And as of late 30th of September, yesterday, when I'm recording, and early morning hours of the 1st of October, when I'm currently recording, we have seen Russia making counter moves in Kursk, pushing Ukraine back. And so it's a really fluid, dynamic battlefield, and that is what you get when you don't have any massive minefields and well thought out trench lines in the way. When you begin a push, you can move fast, and the enemy has to react quickly to counter you. Otherwise, you can make big gains. Anyway, let's take a look. So ISW map, and so far it's only really on the ISW map that we're seeing these Russian gains. We'll see if the other mappers catch on in a day or two, uh, because the mappers usually wait for proper confirmation, and then they wait a couple of days just to make sure that they can make accurate, correct maps. Maps usually update a day or two after the fact. And for some reason, ISW seems to be early in these instances. And what we have seen is a big push by Russia down here towards Kursk, and then they have also countered Ukraine over at Veseloe. Remember, this weekend Ukraine made pushes on the eastern flank and on the west flank, and now Russia has made a counter move, pushing Ukraine back in this very vital town. But we're starting off with that big push in the southeast of Kursk, where Russia has made a move from Borky towards Plekhovo, south of Plekhovo. And this is Andrew Perpetua. As you can see, he has indicated for a day or two that Russia was making moves in the area. He has not updated to show us any advances, though, but his arrow and where he has marked Russian artillery clearly shows that Russia has been making these moves for a couple of days, and apparently, according to ISW, they've now made a breakthrough, or at least have been pushing for a day or two in the area to reach as far as they have, if this is accurate. But important is to take note of this road here. It goes something like so. So according to ISW, Russia has made gains slightly beyond this road, and I've made a map using scribble maps to highlight it a bit further how far Russia has pushed in the area. And this is Scribble Maps, and I made it myself. So you can just head on over to scribblemaps.com, I believe, and you can play around all you want with a very nifty map creator function thing. And it's kind of fun. But anyway, so basing it on what we're seeing here, this is what Russia has achieved according to ISW. Pushed out along this highway that I was talking about, that we saw on Andrew Perpetua's map. They pushed through these forested areas and somehow made it south of Plekhovo and even pushed into the outskirts of town itself. And here, as you can see, you have some Ukrainian defenses, and that seems to be what is holding the line at the moment out in these fields. So this is what ISW is showing us, that Russia moved out from Borky and taken ground along this main road. They've taken these forested areas and cut across these wide open fields and begun to secure some buildings in the south of town. And why is Russia moving in at Plekhovo? Well, not that far away, 3.5 kilometers away from their current positions, roughly. You have a bridge crossing the river Psel right at Gievo, a very important bridge, and Goyevo is a very important town in the overall defense of Ukrainian gains in the area. Obviously, the same goes for Plekhovo, but Goyevo is slightly more important. So they're kind of close to this very vital bridge. And should Russia push through Plekhovo and grab the town, they are, well, at the moment, they are 4 to 5 kilometers away from another bridge crossing the Veseloe River up here in the north as well. But should they push through town, maybe that's 2 kilometers. So they have two bridges in the area that are very important that they're after, but the one I showed you over at Goyevo is the most important bridge. Down here, you may see something crossing the river. I zoomed in, and this is, well, nothing. I don't know why it's listed as a crossing point, because maybe it's a ferry, I don't know, but it certainly isn't a road, or a bridge rather, right? But no clue why this is a thing on the map, but it is what it is. But well, as you can see, you have wide open farmland here, and the question is if Russia is well and truly in control of these wide open fields where they are easy targets for drones and artillery and what have you. That makes me question if they can hold this territory. It's going to be difficult to bring in reinforcements along this main road, being constantly under fire from Ukrainian artillery and drones. But what we can assume, I think, is that they grab this patch of woods down here, this valley, and the forested areas up here. And since Russia is more than likely in control of this area, they can begin pushing in to Plekhovo through this region here. You have forests, some valleys, roads, and the outskirts of town itself. So I think Russia will be hard pressed to maintain these gains in town, and Ukraine will probably be able to push them back. If this is even controlled, this is dubiously contested, I think is a safe assessment. But this is where Russia can begin serious maneuvers towards Plekhovo. Lots of cover, and they have access to town. And so this push into the forest here will allow Russia to begin proper operations towards the town of Plekhovo this way, rather than across these wide open fields. That is more or less suicide. So the Russians over here will either be captured, killed, or will have to fall back in a day or two, would be my guess. So significance. It is significant. Russia has moved in south of the river here, and they can liberate territory up to the river. A huge deal for the Russians, obviously. And the two bridges I was talking about, here you have that bridge outside of Guyevo, and then you have that other bridge here. This bridge is the most important one, this not so much, because this bridge brings Russia in on the western side of this large river. Here yes, you can liberate more territory, but you can't really threaten Ukrainian positions all that much. But if Russia gets across here and can push into Guyevo, as you can see, then they are able to operate within this river system here. And this river is a very effective defensive line for Ukraine. This river will allow Ukraine to maintain a consistent hold on Russian territory. So you have the big town of Sudzha, you have this river that is difficult to cross for Russia. It will make it difficult for Russia to reclaim this territory within the river and within Sudzha. So if Russia can reach this river, question is if they can take it intact. But then this bridge, I mean, if they can take it intact and can get across, then they can truly threaten Ukraine's entire Kursk operation. That's how important this bit of land here within the river is. And they can come up and threaten Sudzha without having to cross other parts of the river in the vicinity of the town, and they can threaten this main highway that is the this goddamn headset. Anyway, this main highway that is the main supply route leading into Kursk for Ukraine. The entire Kursk operation relies on Ukraine being able to move in troops and reinforcements and supplies and resources along this main highway from Ukraine to Sudzha. And Sudzha is the hub, the logistical hub, and from here they can then portion everything out to the front line as needed. So if Russia can get in across this very important bridge, this very important river, and threaten this main highway, they actually threatened the entire Ukrainian incursion into Kursk. That's how important this bridge is. And same thing goes for the bridge up here, obviously. So this is a big deal that Russia is pushing in this way towards that bridge and the town of Goyevo. And as you can imagine, Goyevo is a very important fortress on the western side of this river, defending that bridge and holding the line should Russia be able to cross the river, right? So that is the significance of this push here towards these bridges and this bridge in particular. And yes, all of this took place down here, obviously, south of Sudzha, and Russia moving towards Kyiv on that bridge. But now we're going to take a look at what's going on up here outside of Plekhovo in that small, very vital town of Veseloe. Right, let's try that again. So here we have Veseloe, and what has happened in Veseloe? Let's see here. This has happened. Something like so. Russia has actually, this is how far Ukraine was this weekend, and Russia has pushed out, as you can see, quite a ways beyond that point during the during the afternoon and late hours of the 30th of September and this morning of the 1st of August. Town of Ubikovka is claimed under Russian control, but not yet confirmed. That is why it's yellow. Red is where we have confirmed Russian presence, having pushed in where Ukraine used to be in control. And blue is where we know Ukraine is operating, obviously. So as you can see, it is a substantial push by Russia. But what it's kind of hard to see in the ISW map. So we're going to take a look at a satellite image to try and find out what's going on in the area. Right, scribble maps, my own map. I have made my own tactical map thing using scribble maps. It's a very fun tool to use, I have to say. Anyway, so what are we looking at? Veseloe. Ukraine had pushed up into town about this far and across these fields, and we're up here. And that meant that Ukraine had cut this main supply line from Plekhovo into town. They had also, by pushing up here in the west, they managed to cut off Veseloe from these muddy roads. They're not really roads, they're tracks in the terrain, muddy tracks in the terrain. But Ukraine had pushed in here and cut off these two supply lines and pushed up north here, cutting the main supply line. Veseloe was isolated and Russia could only push in through this narrow gap. On the 28th of September, we saw massive artillery aimed at this gap. If it was Ukraine or Russia, very unclear. But it was in this gap where Russia was still able to move in and out of town. And judging by what has now been confirmed by the ISW map, it could have been Russia moving in a lot of troops, and Ukraine tried to prevent that by aiming massive amounts of artillery into this gap. And those troops made it through, and the end result is what we're seeing now. Russia pushing out from Veseloe, pushing out this way and south across the fields, and what they have done is secured these windbreaks, pushing south roughly this far, according to ISW, and also Russia is claiming to have gained control of this small village of Ubukovka, but that has not yet been confirmed. So this is basically the situation at the moment in Veseloe, according to the ISW team, and not yet confirmed on any other maps. But roughly this is what's going on. And this is super crucial for mainly two reasons. Russia has not made a move here in the west yet. Their focus was to push southeast to open up the main supply route leading to Plekhovo. Right, they pushed out this way and has pushed Ukraine away from the main supply route. Meaning Russia is not interested in using these muddy tracks, and I understand them. You can't rely on mud tracks through farmlands and marshes if you want to maintain proper logistics. You need a road. So Russia is focusing on pushing Ukraine back away from the road so that they can bring in supplies and manpower to Veseloe to hold the town. Makes sense. My question is this stretch here. ISW has Russia out to this windbreak here. But my question is, can Russia utilize this stretch of road with Ukrainian artillery, with Ukrainian drones, with Ukraine, if the Ukraine has pushed out this far and Ukraine could open fire across the fields at the road? Can Russia move troops and supplies through this stretch of road and all the way into town? That is why I made this a bit of a question mark, this area over here. Ukraine has for several days tried to push into the farm or factory, whatever it is over here. I've been talking about this ever since Ukraine made the push into Plekhovo, that this farm would be crucial. If Ukraine can push up this way, they have effectively locked down the road again, so Russia will have to defend this area with a lot of troops and resources to deny Ukraine to lock down this road after Russia has so successfully made a very good attempt to unlock the road again. So that's what's going on over here. This stretch, important. This factory farm, very important to determine who is in control of this road and if Russia can bring in supplies to Veseloe to continue the fight. The other part that is interesting and very important is this push here. Ukraine was for the longest of time in control of the forested area here. This is what allowed them to push into Ubukovka and then further north and to reach these two entry points. Russia has now, according to ISW, pushed in this way. They're in control of the forest, and more importantly, they have actually pushed in south a bit, which means they are in control of the main road and the country roads here in the area that effectively cuts off Ubukovka from the road network. So if you're Ukrainian, that is, Ukraine can't rely on these main roads to reach Ubukovka anymore. They have to move across the terrain or move through windbreaks and what have you, cross these open farm fields, slow down because they aren't relying on proper roads, which makes it difficult to hold on to Bukovka, and it should also make it difficult to hold on to these gains. So Russia appears to have made some very smart moves here. They focused on pushing down here to cut off Bukovka and this northern push from proper supplies. And they have also focused on pushing out this way to force Ukraine away from this Russian supply line. So the question is, if Russia can hold on to this part here, will Ubukovka fall? Not unlikely. Then the question is, can Ukraine maintain a hold on this part of town if they have to rely on country roads and dirt tracks and what have you, and can't utilize the paved road network to bring in troops and supplies to this area. So a big push by Russia that makes a lot of sense and could be very significant unless Ukraine can counter it and push back in short order. We'll see what happens during the day and in the next couple of days. But this is the fight in Kursk. This is how you don't have the minefields, you don't have the trenches. When Ukraine or Russia decides to make a big push, it happens, and then the other side have to react and try and counter, and it will take a couple of days to adjust to the new situation. It's not a slow advance, predictable advances like we're seeing down in Ukraine along those front lines. This is fluid, this is dynamic, and when one side, Russia or Ukraine, decides to make a move, it happens and they gain a lot of territory in short order. So yeah, that's it. I made a couple of maps using scribble maps. How about that? But yes, the situation in Kursk is very fluid. Things change. You flip a coin, and all of a sudden something new has happened, and one side or the other has made important, significant gains. So, I mean, that is what makes Kursk so difficult to predict, and also what makes it difficult for both Russia and Ukraine to hold on to the territory. It is a modern battlefield where you can make fast, quick, aggressive maneuvers, and it will take some time for the enemy to adjust to the new situation, but then when they adjust, they can also move in reinforcements quickly because there are no minefields. So you can quickly reinforce a region that needs reinforcements. So you can make a quick push and then you get locked down. And that's what we've been seeing, time and time again in Kursk. A very modern battlefield with quick decisions and quick gains. But so, yeah, that's gonna have to be it. I hope you found it interesting. We'll see what happens during the day here. I'm sure Ukraine has something to say about Russia's recent gains, and Russia will obviously do their thing to counter the eventual Ukrainian counter moves. But we'll see how the maps develop during the day. But until the next time, as always, go på marsch, Ukraine. Give them hell.